From the John C. Calhoun statue to the Low Battery to 526 to offshore drilling, I sit down exclusively with City of Charleston Councilman Keith Waring and Bill Moody for a special edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And be sure to download the free Quintin's Close-Ups app in your Apple or Google Play stores.
Well, gentlemen, it is so good to see you.
Good to see you.
I appreciate this.
Thanks for having us.
Anytime.
Thanks for inviting us.
Anytime. You're welcome here. Well, yeah, I got to jump into the obvious. And I got to take you to Brian Hicks' column from the Post-Courier earlier today. The headline reads this: Hicks' column, Charleston is in a no-win situation with the Calhoun Monument. My question is this: what type of situation are we in with the Calhoun Monument?
Well,
Who do you want to go first?
My statement is that Brian Hicks is exactly right.
Okay.
And I would say that we've got, in the city, we've got a lot of issues we got to deal with, whether it be drainage and a whole bunch of other stuff, revitalizing West Ashley and traffic and all this kind of stuff. And here we are fighting over some words on a statue. And there's no way that I can understand where Keith is coming from. I'm not black. I have never been black. I never will be black, and I'll never understand that perspective. I can sympathize with it.
Okay.
So why are Keith and I going to get in an argument and waste our time and effort over some words on a statue? I mean, I have too much respect for him to get into that kind of an argument. And the other council members the same way.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. We're not going to get crossed. Well, I mean, Bill and I, or I don't believe our council will get crossed, because there's a good respect. We may differ on the issue. Issues come and issues go.
Right.
And quite frankly, the words on the statue, I think, has been an issue that's been created.
Mm-hmm.
There's a larger issue there, I think we all know. And as time goes on, maybe that larger issue would be addressed. But it is not as simple as filling in the blank. And in this case, the blank would be the plaque. I'm in the category with Councilmember Mitchell. I think the words on the plaque will not be sufficient.
Never will be.
Never will be. I agree with you. I agree.
How did we get here with this debate? Because the Calhoun Mansion's been there as long as I've been living in this town.
Very good question. Very good question. I think you have to give it to the mayor and his people on that.
Okay.
That was not even, and correct me if I'm wrong, Bill, I never heard any council members walking around saying, you know, we need to work on a plaque on the Calhoun thing. We really do have some serious issues to be addressed, like the drainage and the flooding, and not having enough money to do so. And then we got West Ashley revitalization, which is the largest area of the city. It probably will have one of the largest economic impacts in this region for a long time to come. And funding that, we've got a lot of serious things to talk about, and I think this is a diversion.
Let me talk about some of those serious issues, obviously. Well, first, you have a new city council.
Right.
You have Kevin Shealy, you have Carol Jackson, of course, Harry Griffin. And two of those people are actually from West Ashley. Walk me through how you will work with Kevin and Harry on city council.
Well, number one, they're people of high intellect. So the part that I feel real good about is they're going to do their homework. Just if you get to know them, they're the type that they're not going to come to a meeting and open their meeting package when they sit down at council chambers. And the responsibility that we all have, you really have to do your homework prior to coming before you can establish your positions and represent your people the right way. You can't, if you don't do your homework, you're going to fail in class. If you know your homework when it comes to the issues with the city, you're going to fail your constituents. So really, that's the way it works.
Bill?
Yeah, I would say all three are. I'm hoping for the very best from all three. I mean, we got an opportunity to kind of start all over again. We got a new council, so let's go about working together. And I think their basic principles, I think they're honorable men and women. Mm-hmm. I think they want to do what's right, and we might and probably will. As Keith and I differ on issues,
that's right.
But we once that's settled, that issue's behind us, we start on the next one. And I think they'll bring that same attitude and well, that attitude of governance to the body. And I think there'll be a real particularly those two men, West Ashley, will be a huge plus for us on the council.
I have to say this, Ms. Jackson certainly seems like she studies and she's going to be informed when she gets around the table.
Right.
And when you have 12 people
Right.
around the table, pretty informed on the whatever subject or issue is at hand,
Right.
and obviously the mayor being informed, he's got a staff to help him stay up, keep up. That should bode well for the city going forward.
You talk about the mayor. I was just talking with Brian Hicks last night, right after I did my interview with him. And him, and including everyone else I'm talking to, they basically said, hey, and I don't want to go backwards, but it was almost political suicide for the mayor to jump into the city hall races. When you hear that, what do you say?
I would not have done that myself. All I can say is I thought it was a bad, political move. That's, I think that's probably being kind, but he shouldn't have done that in my opinion.
You have to go back to President Obama. I think it was a teachable moment.
Okay.
I would hope that he learned from that, because this is why a mayor has to work with all councilmen.
Sure.
Okay. Now, let's say the three of us were council, and you and Bill work great together on a particular issue, and for some reason I'm out to lunch on that issue. The mayor has to work with all three. Now, you and Bill can work together, and you may not necessarily need to work with me on that particular issue, but the chief executive officer for the city needs to be able to have a good rapport and good relations with all council members. As best as you can do it. And remember, we're all human.
Right.
By the same token, when you throw out a strategy like that and it doesn't work, I just wouldn't want to be on the other side of that. So I hope it was a learning experience
Okay.
that on the other side of it makes him better as a mayor, because we all need that.
Sure. Let me move from City Hall to the Lower Battery. Obviously, construction will be happening there later this year. Let me ask you this. What do you want to see on Lower Battery in your mind?
What I want to see is on Lower Battery, the wall needs to be raised. And because Bill can chime in, but I don't think anybody's against that. There are three proposals, as I understand it, out there. And those proposals, one will expand the green space down around White Point Garden, similar to Waterfront Park,
Right.
giving you a larger promenade. I don't think that's a smart move. A second one will also reduce parking for the public, which I don't think that's a good move. So I think what we do is we repair what's there, raise it because of the necessity of flooding. Number one, the first two we can't afford anyway. There's been a narrative thrown out about it being $100 million. And if we were to spend $100 million expanding green space and eliminating parking, that's going to eliminate a lot of areas of the city that we're not going to be able to address flooding. Because this is not a beautification project for the battery. It's really to address flooding and water coming across the wall. And that's the unspoken language nobody wants to admit to. But councilmen know that those dollars are being spent to raise the wall. And it needs to be done, man. The walls need to be repaired and raised. But eliminating public access is a big no-no. And one big issue that has yet to be met, but prior to passing on council, I would hope, this is one council person speaking, we have to put restrooms down there. We're going to take the number, 50 million, 40 million, 50 million, 60 million, and the public still has to have a query. We invite hundreds of thousands of people to come and view that beautiful spot. And when the urgency comes, there's no answer. You have to go blocks and blocks away, and that's just not. I just won't support anything like that.
Yeah, we got a long way to go on that, and what I'd like to see is if they've got 2 or 3 proposals, bring them to us, let us look at them. But to put $100 million, if that's the number, and I have no idea, maybe more or less, but if you're going to put that much down there, you're not going to make provision for bathrooms. You're not, you're putting green space down there. All this beautification, and the only way you're going to be able to do that is really either taking all the money we have available for anything else. And so you're gonna stifle development West Ashley and everywhere else to put another park downtown. We need to fix the flooding problem, not only downtown, but we've got a flooding problem in Old Windermere, we got a flooding problem in Church Creek, we got a flooding problem on Eugene King Street, we got a flooding problem, you name it, downtown, West Ashley, everywhere. So we can't take all of our resources and assets and spend it on a beautification area in one place. We need to fix the flooding down there just like we do in Goose Creek. So we've got to have an honest discussion about how that's going to work out.
No, not Goose Creek, Church Creek.
Church Creek. They probably got a flooding problem in Church and Goose Creek.
That's right.
And another discussion everyone's having right now.
Well, hold on one point, before we leave there, Quintin. I think one error that we've done as a city, when they had public hearings, for example, on the options for the battery, they pretty much hold them on the peninsula. They don't go to James Island. We as a city haven't gone to James Island with that presentation, or Johns Island, or west of the Ashley, or on Daniel Island to say, out of these proposals, what do you think? What do you like? How does it affect you coming from Daniel Island to the White Point Gardens, or James Island and White Point Gardens, eliminating this parking and the like? When we get feedback, the habit has been, well, we'll ask the people who live closest to it, and that's what we'll make our decisions on. I just think that's wrong, because we have a nice, diverse city, and we need to seek as much input as we can. So on that issue, you will find council persons who do not live on the peninsula that have a very large opinion on it. But the constituents hadn't even been presented the question or even asked for additional input. And that, in my opinion, needs to change.
Let me pick up a little bit, something that the council did in our budget this year that has not gotten very much publicity, in my opinion. And this has to do with our stormwater fees. We have a stormwater fee that we charge $6 per month for per household, and it's based on an average of 2,200 square foot house. And that produces about $2 million a year, and that's for stormwater. We have a master drainage plan that was developed, written and studied in 1984. So we're working off of a plan that was drafted in 1984.
The year I was born.
We got a master drainage plan and Quintin the same year. That was a good year, but we hadn't had a Quintin or a master drainage plan since. So, but my point is that council came up with a plan to raise that by $2, and it's important that we did it that way because all of the not-for-profits, Citadel, College, Charleston, Rope, all those people pay part of that stormwater based on their size. And so everybody, they cause some of the drainage problems, they need to be responsible for fixing the drainage problems too. So that's going to produce a couple $1 million in 2018. And the first $500,000, give or take a little bit, is going to take that 1984 master drainage plan up to 2018. So now we've got a plan. We've got priorities, we've got some cost figures as to what it's going to cost to fix these things. And we have probably $1 million, $1.5 million that we can start implementing some of those plans. And part of that implementation will be to go find grants and other sources of revenue to fund our drainage problem. So you've heard very little about that, but that was a unanimous decision by council to do that. And so, you know, it's not just the battery. The battery got a lot of attention. It's not just Church Creek. It got it's the whole city, and we've got to address it in a holistic manner and work together to make this work, or come together to make it work. So anyway, I just wanted to get that in.
Fine.
Yeah.
And a lot of another discussion is about offshore drilling. What do you like? What do you don't like? What do you expect from this discussion?
Well, this is the second time this has come before City Council, and we've basically rejected the offshore drilling. We're a tourist state. Pearl Beach, the Hilton Head, Charleston, Folly, all that stuff. Any kind of disruption off the coast would have a catastrophic, or could have a catastrophic impact on our beaches and our tourist area. So I don't know whether there's gas out there or not. I don't, maybe we could just mine or drill for gas, but usually oil comes with it. And then you've got to have all the onshore stuff to process it and all that stuff. So it really changes the character of our coastline if we're going to go down that road. And if we're not going to go down that road, then why start? And that's kind of where I am. Let's, if somebody else wants to do that, but that's not what I think we ought to be doing. Mm-hmm. And so, that, like I said, it's the second time we voted for it. This is a new effort by a new, the law came down, or the regulations came down, and a new group said, we're going to sue, and we want you to be part of the suit. And we're not going to have to pay anything to do that. They just want to use our name, City of Charleston, as being opposed to it, and that's what we approve. So we're not putting any money into it or funding it or anything like that.
Keith, where are you with this?
Similarly, but if you were to look at the #1 income producer to the state of South Carolina, and certainly the Charleston area, it's tourism. If you look at the #2 income producer to the state of South Carolina, it's the State Ports Authority. Now, we all remember the images of Deepwater Horizon and the sludge and the oil and making its way to New Orleans and all of that. Can you imagine? We have a wonderful harbor, but it's a delicate harbor. If that oil were to come into our harbor, you would shut down the two largest industries, or have a devastating effect on the two largest industries in the state of South Carolina at the same time. Now, why would you want to take on the risk of risking your #1 income producer and your #2 income producer potentially at the same time? Nobody's going to come to our beaches. Nobody's going to come to White Point Garden if you got crude oil slashing up against the battery wall. The ships that come in and out of the harbor, the container ships, they're going to have to stay offshore until that stuff gets cleaned up. To me, the risk isn't worth the reward. So I think it's a pretty easy call on not doing it.
And while I have you guys here, it's always popping back up in the news, whether it's on newspaper, television, or radio, but it's 526.
Yeah.
Is it still alive, or is it dead in your mind?
I think it's dead in the minds of the people who don't want it. I think it's very much alive. And if you look at infrastructure and the population increase, take the number, anywhere between 45 and 50 people a day. Sometimes I've heard higher.
Right.
In most of our metropolitan areas, Charleston, Mount Pleasant, North Charleston, there aren't any major new roads you can bring in. And when they say that 526 isn't needed, that's the only way you can take traffic that originates from James Island and Johns Island off of the local roads West Ashley, meaning St. Andrews Boulevard and Savannah Highway. You're on James Island, you need to get to Trident Tech. You're going to cut through either St. Andrews Boulevard or Savannah Highway. And one thing that I always would say when I get in front of a group, let's just say hypothetically that 526 started from the peninsula with the James Island connector, continued across James Island to Johns Island, to West Ashley, to Mount Pleasant, to Daniel Island, and ended. Didn't go to Mount Pleasant. What would the people in Mount Pleasant be doing right now? They'd be raising roof off. You know it, and I know it.
See, I think a lot of the arguments are, to me, are not against it, are not exactly sound. I mean, they say it's going to cause development, that if you build 526 or complete 526, that you're going to have this huge development over on James and Johns Island. It's going to cause them to explode. And I will tell you that, in my opinion, that is totally incorrect. Mm-hmm. And my example is, they say the street's going to cause it. If you look at our state, you've got I-26 that runs from, east and west. And then you've got I-95 that runs north and south. And right where those two interstates cross, two major interstates cross, is a little town called St. George. Now, that's a thriving metropolis. I mean, there is business going in there, there's industry, it's exploding, right?
Right.
So there's nothing happening particularly in St. George, and they got two major highways there. And people say, well, why is that? And the answer is very simple. You don't have water, you have well water. You don't have sewage, you have septic tanks. Okay? That's why it's not developed. Industry's not going to go there. If you ran water there and you ran sewage there, that would develop. The problem with James and Johns Island is they already have water. They already have sewer. They are going to develop. Go over there today and look at the development going on Johns Island. And so all it's doing is that development is going to occur. And you're going to have more gridlock. 2016, they did a study. Completing 526, there was going to be I think it was 36 choke points, James, Johns Island, West Ashley, like Wesley Drive in Northbridge.
Right.
36 choke points that if you completed 526, it would get rid of all but 9. Now, I don't know what the current study is, but it's only going to get worse. Those choke points are going to get worse and worse and worse. So we've got to have mass transit. To me, mass transit makes more sense. You talk about how to get from North Charleston to downtown. Maybe, how about cross 526 right into Calhoun Street with buses? And where you have people come from Somerville, and 526 could become that artery that would allow that mass transit to be more realistic, more effective.
All I'm gonna just say is ditto.
And there's a lot more that you could argue for it.
Sure.
So I don't think it's dead. I think it's needed.
Okay.
And the frustrating part of this is that the highway department is basically, we're passing half-cent sales tax to do main roads and, intersections on 17 and 41 and all these other places around here. And yet, this state infrastructure bank won't let us complete. The highway department ought to be doing all of it.
Okay.
Charleston County, the citizens of Charleston County shouldn't be having to pay for all of these things, but we are. And they're not doing their job in getting these roads completed.
I can't think of one portion of 526 that's not used, that's in place already. Nobody says that that's a highway to nowhere. We use it. I mean, we use it to the point to where it's now gridlock. The thinking on that beltway once was, well, that's way out of town. But that's not the case anymore, right?
Yeah,
If you did a beltway today, you would never have planned it with 526 as you would put it further out, probably around Somerville.
Well, at some point, 20, 50 or whatever, it might be another beltway out there at Ravenel and around the Alvendale and something like that. I mean, there may be another one that needed it by that time.
Wow. And you talk a lot about North Charleston. Obviously, the mayor, Charleston Mayor John Teckenberg and Keith Summey have their own fight over some land. What's going on here with that?
Well, it's not a fight amongst themselves. It's just not two guys. I mean, obviously, their council and their mayor have one thought, and certainly our mayor and our council have another thought. And obviously, we think we're right in not wanting to develop in the historic area of Ashley River Road, the historic site down there. Roads down there. We don't want it developed. They do. So there's not a whole lot of areas to compromise on, as I see it, on something like that. So
I think the question is, how are you going to develop that? And that whole area, the Whitfield tract, the 2,200 acres that they're talking about developing, that's the upper part, the northern part of the Church Creek drainage basin. Right. And for that to be developed at all, and all that drainage be brought down through Chatham-Moss and all down through that part of the city, it would really be devastating. It's already bad out there, it would just get worse. So even if it's developed, somehow that drainage needs to go to the Ashley River or to the Rantols River and not further down the Church Creek Basin. So now you've got different jurisdictions trying to manage this kind of development. And that becomes problematic in itself. And to me, that's really what it is that area in the city of Charleston is outside of our urban growth boundary line, which says, okay, everything on this side is denser, and on the outside it's not very dense development. North Charleston doesn't have an urban growth boundary line. So that's not a concern of theirs. So they, their SR1, which is 4 units per acre, could be right there. We would not allow that probably. Ours would be like 1 unit per acre or something less. So that's really what the fight is over, is the density and how that's going to be developed.
Yeah, the urban growth boundary line is something that the county respects, obviously the city of Charleston respects. The city of North Charleston doesn't even recognize it as being a line that they won't cross. They won't recognize it as a bridge too far.
Well, they don't have, I mean, they're surrounded by other cities, so they don't have an urban or rural delineation. I mean, it's just not necessary for them. Whereas in Charleston, we have Johns Isle, we have that area out there. So that's where it is. And we've got Highway 61. I mean, you cannot put more traffic on Highway 61. It's a historic highway, it's a beautiful highway. So that means that if you've got the piece of property like this and 61's over here, you've got to complete the Glen McConnell at some point. And so that's way down. So how long are you going to be able to develop? You got to get the traffic. You can't put it on 61. It's just really how is it going to be developed?
You know, the thing about it, we don't operate within silos. And those type annexations, in particular in the new millennium, we should communicate better as municipalities. One thing that I think most people don't realize, there is not a regularly scheduled meeting between, to my knowledge anyway, between the mayor of North Charleston, who's a friend of mine. As a matter of fact, he has a great name. His name is Keith. So between Mayor Sami and the mayor of Mount Pleasant and the mayor of the city of Charleston, they're all busy. So when do they get time to schedule another meeting? I understand that. But from a regional perspective, is when we do better. Okay? When this region works together, as it did with base realignment some years and years ago, that's one reason we still have the military installations we have today. The differences were put aside, and common ground was reached. Hopefully, on the other side of this annexation, and I think it's a squabble, because the Runnymede portion that they annexed, there was no dispute on that. That was legal.
Okay. And they can develop that however they want to. I mean, it's contiguous, it's right there, and they can develop that property. The problem there is just that's all they've got. They can't go further from that, and that's where the legal fight will come in as to how that goes forward. And I agree with this Keith. Keith Summy is a friend of mine. My business was located in North Charleston for many years, so Keith and his family have always been close to me, and I appreciate everything they've done. And so, again, we just have to work through these differences. We're not going to go to war. At least I don't intend to go to war. I just want to work through the differences.
I asked the wrong question earlier, but my question is now, why now? Why now with this whole fight? Why now?
You mean with the annexation
Right.
piece? You know, cities are living and breathing entities, so I do understand the need to grow, okay? And even on the part of North Charleston, the need to grow. It's just that growing in this area of sparse development and the potential to create a dense development is a substantial difference. And there are times when if you want 4 units per acre, and some people think 1 unit per acre is too much, there's not a whole lot of compromise in it. I guess you can go to 2. But the reality is the drainage that Bill spoke of and the infrastructure and just servicing that area from North Charleston. Can you imagine servicing that area from North Charleston? Coming all across 526, all the way West Ashley. But that would be something, if they prevail, they would have to think about. But the reality of it is we think it's unwise. Right now they think it is. And eventually that will be worked out. Because if we can't come to agreement, there are people dressed in black robes that will take care of all that.
Yeah, they have to figure out, as Keith said, cities are living, breathing things, and they really always have to grow. I mean, if you just hire people and everything stays the same, you can't raise salaries, you can't, as costs go up, all you do is raise taxes, or you can go out and bring more business or more stuff in to increase that tax base. So they're just trying to be a good city, and they've only got a very limited amount of space or direction that they can move. So that's what they thought would be a good thing for their city. But we disagree on the density, really.
Look at our city. When it was primarily peninsula only, I mean, you couldn't grow out into the harbor, right? So the natural area were West Ashley, areas west of the peninsula, and then eventually Daniel Island and all of that. But it took the annexation of West Ashley to help pay for some of the improvements that we all enjoy today on the peninsula. And it took West Ashley, James Island, and the peninsula to help pay for some of the infrastructure that's on Daniel Island today. Okay, so without that growth, I don't know that the peninsula of Charleston alone could have done Daniel Island type projects. I don't really know without a peninsula if you could have annexed West Ashley. Well, West Ashley was already somewhat developed, so it was, as accountants say, it was accretive to the bottom line. When they annexed West Ashley, it added revenue to the bottom line versus annexing a raw piece of land that tax revenue has to be developed.
Well, Councilman Keith Waring and Bill Moody, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll do it again.
Yes, please. Yeah.